It's Leicester again. Leicester, take two. We've driven all the way back down the motorway, home to our cat, and now we've driven all the way back up because that's the kind of people we are. Isn't it, Sid?
Apparently, yes. And we have a very needy cat.
Anyway, on to the Ashes. Didn't quite go to plan for England in the first match. They lost. Only by 2 wickets in the end. Why were England so rubbish? what went wrong, Sid?
It's difficult to know, isn't it? Because England had looked so good, they'd looked so full of confidence, and they obviously came out full of that confidence. That first shot Tammy Beaumont played off the opening ball of the innings was just fantastic, and showed a player whose head was really in the right place. And then within moments it had all fallen to pieces, and within 6 overs we were back to the England that we'd seen not play in the World 2020 final. It was disappointing to see, really, because we'd really felt going into it that that the performance in the World 2020 final wasn't really England. England were capable of better than that, and then suddenly they weren't again. Is this something the Australians have over them? The Australians are definitely favourites, and maybe England just mentally collapsed.
I mean, obviously both sides were nervous, because I don't think that the Australian batting coaches will be too happy with the way that Australia batted, will they?
No, and I think that in fact what we saw is that neither side batted especially well. Australia did some silly stuff as well, and it was really very much a bowler's game, wasn't it, Raf?
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder whether, to some extent, England's problem, if you can put it like that, is that Tammy Beaumont and Amy Jones as an opening ODI partnership are just too successful, and so players like Heather Knight and potentially Sarah Taylor aren't used to coming out at the moment and having to face the new ball.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is an explanation. I mean, I'm sure if you ask them, that they would say that they're totally ready for this, and they ought to be, because, at the end of the day, you face, you can train against new balls, you can train against old balls. They should be capable of hitting anything, But I think also you mustn't take anything away from the fact that Megan Shute in particular bowled really, really well. I'm not convinced that. I mean, Elise Perry, she's obviously a great player, and I don't think she bowled badly. But I don't think that Elise Perry actually was bowling anything like as well as Shute. I think that England just didn't play her as well, and perhaps England saw that Shute was bowling really well, and they thought, oh, we can make some hay at the other end, and there were a couple of lazy strokes there. But overall, I think that it was definitely a game that the bowlers will come out feeling much happier about than the batsmen, definitely, and the batsmen on both sides will be looking to do better today.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certainly a little bit of a dispute maybe about whether Elise Perry should really have been given the Player of the Match award, and she actually said when she was collecting it, should it really have gone to me? I don't think so. So, bit of question mark there, perhaps. Australia in the end only won by 2 wickets, so on paper that's actually a very tight game, but Sid, you've got some thoughts on that particular point.
Yeah, I think it was a much less close game than the scorecard makes it look. There's an interesting comparison with what happened in the women's football in the World Cup semi-final, which we were listening to on the way home the other night, and the commentators were describing how what the USA did at the end of that game was kind of what they say in football, park the bus, that they just ran the ball down into the corners. They just, quite legally, but they were wasting time essentially, because the USA were on top. All they needed to do was keep possession of the ball, and they were going to win that match. And Australia, at the end of that ODI, once Alyssa Healy had given them the platform they did, that all the Australians needed to do was kind of park the bus, just close out, and just play the most basic, sensible, almost defensive cricket, and they were still going to win that match. They didn't park the bus quite as early as I expected them to, and Beth Mooney in particular, she will have incurred the wrath of the coaches with a very silly shot, which was definitely not a park the bus shot. But it always felt like Australia had that game in control once Alyssa Healy had given them the platform, so I don't think it was really as close as the scorecard makes it look.
That's interesting. Obviously, the other big talking point after that first game is the lack of the DRS in this Women's Ashes series. So Fran Wilson in particular got an absolute howler of a decision that both of us, when we were watching it live, just said that's nowhere near out. And given the angle that we were at from the press box, we weren't really at the right angle, but it just so clearly deflected. So I mean, and there's been plenty written about that since. Should the ECB and Cricket Australia have opted to use DRS for this series? I know that it's never been used in the women's bilateral series. It's important to remember that. But on the other hand, this is now potentially the women's Ashes is bigger than the World Cup, so surely they should be using it. What do you reckon, Sid?
Well, I think if you ask the simple question, as a lot of people have done, the answer is, should they be using it? Yes, of course they should be using it. But the issue remains that it does cost money to use it. There's been a lot of speculation about how much it costs. Our understanding is that it costs per game at least 5 figures, so at least £10,000, and that's quite a lot of money. And you have to, if you're going to go, well, we're going to use that, you have to go, well, where are we going to take that money from? Are we going to take it from women's domestic cricket? Are we going to take it from the salaries of the England players? Where's it going to come from? Are we going to put them up in the travel lodge rather than the Holiday Inn? You've got to answer those questions. And if you can answer
nothing wrong with the travel lodge.
Absolutely. Sorry.
Other hotels are available. No, but I think the point is a good one, which is that there is a budgetary thing here, and a couple of the pieces I think that have sort of underestimated the amount of investment that would be required to use it. So I guess potentially it will be a decision that's reviewed. At the end, thank you. Thanks. At the end of this series, because I don't think they'll be doing anything mid-series, and then maybe in 2 years' time, the next Women's Ashes, we may see it come in. Having said that, this debate has been raging since the last time the Women's Ashes was played in England 4 years ago, because I dug out that quote from Catherine Brunt, didn't I? About it's exactly the same. She said in 2015, when I think it was Lydia Greenway had been given a howler during the women's test that England lost so badly. And Catherine Brunt said, of course we should be using DRS. So, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, and the debate will carry on, as Isabel Westbury said in her piece in the Telegraph. The debate also does exist in the men's game, because the Scotland national side were essentially deprived of a place in the men's World Cup over a decision that would clearly have been overturned on DRS. So it's not even a discussion that's unique to the women's game.
We did run a Twitter poll yesterday, in which we posed a question to our followers: will England win tomorrow? So will England win today? The results are in. Sid, drum roll please. Drum roll please.
Chugga.
Okay, 47% think yes, of course they will. That compares to 30% who think that Australia will win, and 23% who think it's too close to call. We have got some very optimistic Twitter followers, haven't we, Sid?
I suspect we've got a lot of English Twitter followers. I wonder if the breakdown will be 45% English, 25% Australian, and the rest are from
Neutrals.
elsewhere. Yes.
Well, we'll see whether England can do it today. I mean, it's a good team, and hopefully it'll be another competitive match, and we'll be bringing you all the action from Leicester.